politics.
You don't see any danger in how he's been removed. Lawyers argue that this kind of thing can, I mean, because some people have said, oh, he's been called to resign, he has to step aside. They think that spurious allegations can come up against anybody who is in any office that, you know, maybe somebody doesn't like. Allegations could come up, and then the talk is for the person to resign.
It's interesting. That's why, because what you're talking about now is about precedents. Because if the wrong precedent is laid now, the subsequent matters, that's why I'm sure that they're going to. That is why it is important and it's interesting that the courts give a final, determines the propriety or otherwise of the process. Are you getting my point? That is why it's important that we allow the court. If the process was wrong, let's allow the court to determine whether that process was wrong or right.
But are we giving room to the courts? Because even as this, you know, the lawyers of the CJN go to court, even the CJN himself has gone to court challenging his suspension. Are we giving room for all of these things to, you know, take their due course before we rush it? Because it looks like the trial is a bit rushed. You don't think so, as a lawyer?
The ACJ, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, also recommends it has provisions, several provisions, and it supports speedy adjudication of trials. I don't know whether it appears political or otherwise. I think strictly that's not what we're discussing. You get it? It may have political connotation.
But you're a politician as well.
Yes, I am a politician as well.
You cannot remove these things from political connotations.
Exactly.
You have heard people talk about, I mean, even the international community has raised concerns about how very close this is to the elections and how this could, you know, be perceived as some kind of, you know, witch hunting, you know, prior to the elections, which might not bode well for the process.
If we are to delve into the political connotation or the political aspect of all this thing that is happening, I will tell you without mentioning words that political connotation, as in from political perspective,
yes,
it is purely in order, and to address the cause, the system, headlong from the political angle.
How is it in order?
I think it wouldn't be wise for me to say this now because or to say anything on this regard, because the matter is a matter subject to appeal and is sub judice. So for me giving it any political interpretation wouldn't be in the best interest of the outcome or whatever court will say.
But you say that it is fine. I mean, this is
no,
in spite of the fact that elections are coming. How do you justify the CJN
It doesn't
suspension?
in any way affect the election. It doesn't. It has nothing to do with the election. It has absolutely nothing to do with the election. Whether the opposition or one party raises issue or raises eyebrow with regards to what is happening, that will be in their interest to explain in the interest they have. Are you getting my point? This is the CJN we're talking about. That it belongs to no political party. It's meant not to belong to any political party. Any court does not belong to any political party. So if you have any protest against an action that was taken, it should be seen from at least from an objective mind, from objective perspective of a reasonable Nigerian, not from a standpoint of a person interested. So
you see nothing wrong with a petition being raised on one day. In less than 2 days, this case has been transferred to the CCT. It doesn't smack of anything political to you.
It may smack something, but that's what I'm saying.
Because you have said everything is in order. A lot of people who have watched, I mean, even journalists are wondering, we have never seen this alacrity in deciding certain things.
The BRICS process, as you said, the speedy process, does it in any way violate any procedure of law?
You don't think in any way?
In some other aspects, the process can as well be delayed. Are you getting my point? So does it in any way violate the provisions of the law?
You don't think that?
I know, in as much as all of us may wish.
The problem is this. Some people will say it immediately raises the suspicion of bias, which must not be seen in any court process or even in the manner in which a case is prosecuted. I mean, if the CJN, for instance, believes that the CCT might be biased in its own instance, doesn't he have a right to appeal or raise his objections?
Perfectly. He has absolute right to do so. But remember, you said it immediately raises the suspicion of bias. It depends on the standpoint from which you're saying it.
What's your standpoint? How do you explain it then? What's your standpoint? How are you saying it?
To me,
yes.
From my own personal standpoint, In as much as someone can say it raises the suspicion of bias, I see it as the necessary thing to be done. As in, it calls for quick action.
How quick should this action be? Should it be quicker than the actions we've seen taken on every other person's trial?
I personally pray that every other criminal proceedings or criminal trial should also be taking such a quick action.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So people want action to be quick. I mean, we have seen cases, especially in criminal, with the new criminal code of beg your pardon, I'm trying to remember. Administration of Criminal Justice Act. We've seen trials being accelerated. I mean, courts are sitting on a daily basis to quickly finish a case, or in some instances every other day to ensure that a case is finished. But in the manner in which this has been done, you would argue that we have not seen this type of alacrity before. Isn't that right?
But it's right, but this is totally different. This is a totally different discussion now.
How is it a different discussion?
Because
isn't it all related?
Does he offend the position of the ACJ? Does he offend the position of the ACJ? Is not in tandem with the position of the ACJ, as you just said.
Bias is in tandem with it?
No, not bias. I'm not talking about bias. I'm talking about the speedy trial.
Some people will argue that if it's too speedy, if it's not in the manner that every other person whose trial has been allegedly speedy is speedy, if his own is speedier than all of that, then what is the hurry will be the argument.
Okay, I said it depends on the standpoint from which the person wants to view it. Excuse me. It depends on the standpoint from which whoever person wants to view it. But the fact remains, the ACJ even recommends speedy trial, day-to-day accelerated hearing for criminal proceedings. Yes or no? So whether this one is singled out and being accelerated and why others are being delayed, it's not for our cost, it's not for us to determine. And besides, this matter has not been on the daily trial. It could be 2 days interval, 2 days interval. It hasn't been on daily trial.
Let us look at the position of the CJN, though. What options do you see open to him? He's gone to court to challenge his suspension. What else can he do if he doesn't believe that, his process is following the path it should follow? What options are open to him?
I think that's the foremost option, that number one option that is open to him, and that's considering the personality of the person involved and the office which he occupies. Trust in the judicial system must be paramount. Trust in the judicial system, very important. And it should be seen. Whose trust?
His trust?
His trust in the system. Because many people are looking up to how much his trust in the system, in the judicial system is. We ourselves trust the judicial system. So we look up to the foremost judicial officer. What is the level of trust in the judicial system? And I believe he trusts the judicial system. That's why he has been making some moves he's making in court. Very perfect.
There are lawyers who argue that both sides don't seem to have done well in this matter. That, it is almost difficult to believe that the CJN forgot to declare certain assets. Some other people argue that the presidency has overstepped its bounds. If you were to adjudicate on the matter, if you were to look at a fair trial between both parties, if you were to come to a compromise, what would you recommend?
A compromise outside judicial system, or, what kind of compromise?
We've heard many lawyers talk about, Mr. Femi Falana, for instance, has asked the presidency to reinstate, the Chief Justice, and asked if the Chief Justice is reinstated, he should personally step aside. Is it a process that you would recommend? That the presidency does not have any powers to suspend the CJN without the concurrence of the National Assembly, and they believe that at the end of the day, if he's reinstated, because of the charges against his person, he should step aside and, face the music?
Honestly, I just think, in view of the position of things now, I just think that the necessary thing or the best thing the CJN should do is what he's doing. That is exactly what needs to be done. Even if, no matter how long it takes, if the suspension is voided by court, there must be redress. There must be redress to his rights, or whatever thing the wrongs that were done or meted out on him. So the judicial process first should be, if there is any some form of settlement, whatever, or suggestion made by SAN, Falana, as I said, that should be outside the judicial process. You know, but in the course of the judicial process, I think what he's doing is just the perfect thing to do.
I'm just wondering, how does this, you know, affect the rest of judicial officers? How does it affect the perception of the public of
That's
all
why
other
it's important what
officers?
is happening. That's why, like I said, that's why it's important, because the public are watching. The courts are not political offices. So it's very, the people's public confidence in the courts must be protected jealously. We should not take actions or do things that erode public confidence.
The
public
actions
trust.
that the executive arm of government has taken, has it engendered confidence in the
Not
judiciary?
at all. Not at all. Not at all. Honestly, not at all.
So you are not in support of the moves made by the presidency?
The suspension?
Yes.
No, I'm in full support of what the
I just asked you if the actions taken by the executive has engendered confidence in the judiciary.
So I thought
said
it
not at
endangered.
all.
I mean, I thought you meant endangered. It engendered, it has more or less boosted public confidence in the judicial process.
Because when you accuse a Chief Justice of Nigeria and the process is supersonic speed, I mean, he's already in court being tried, even though he's not there yet and claims he has not been served. Some people would argue that how is this not a war of some sort against the judiciary? Have we taken, you know, due process? What is the guarantee that we're not trying to, you know, taint all judges? It might look like as if all judges might be like that.
No, not true. There are many judges, there are many judicial officers, many of them that are very sound. They live up to the dictates of their office. They discharge their responsibilities without fear of people. They are in any way can never compromise the course of adjudication.
What about the NJC? Has the NJC done well in engendering confidence?
NJC reasonably has been doing very greatly. Yeah, the NJC has been doing very well.
Should we have waited for the NJC?
No, but NJC is not like a court. NJC only make recommendations or suggestions. NJC doesn't have the final decisions on things of this nature. You get it? NJC makes recommendations because it's a body that supervises the judicial officer. So NJC in its own angle has roles to play, but not like the final determinant of what becomes of whoever.
We will see what role or what recommendations the NJC is going to make. I mean, some people, I cannot confirm this, but we understand that they might be recommending, you know, retirement. We don't know, but we have to thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Daily. Mr. Oscar Obi is a legal practitioner and has been speaking on the bench warrant now ordered or given for the arrest of the suspended CJ and Walter Onnoghen.